Hello to all my friends out there in YouTube land that touch base with me pretty regularly, and all the new people just tuning in for the first time. My name is Nancy Rebecca, and I am a nurse, but I'm a full-time psychic. I teach intuitive psychic development, and my goal, kind of my calling and mission, is to help you to remember that you're a spiritual being having a human experience. But boy, it certainly feels like that's all we're having is a human experiences right now. But we are spiritual beings, and our spiritual side of ourselves communicates to us through intuition, through feeling, sound, sight, knowing. Now, in the human energy field, which is my favorite topic to talk about, we have our aura, definitely. We have lines that run through our energetic lines that run through our body, and you might know them in Chinese medicine and acupuncture as meridians, energetic meridians. But we also have our flow of emotions, creativity, etc. And we have our chakras. So we have our energy centers that are really the libraries filled with information that we have access to since the beginning of time. And when you meditate, you have access to it. In this video, what I'm talking about, sorry I didn't kind of like jump there first, but did you know that the whole earth also has kind of meridians, energy lines that energy travels across, as well as chakras in the form of kind of vortexes. And so you might not have known that, you might have known that. But in this video, I'm going to talk about how when war, destruction, kind of bombs and things like that happen, how that can damage the energy field of the earth. So I'm going to talk about that and kind of introduce you to ways that you can help to heal the ley lines and the vortexes of the earth, so that as the earth is also going through an expansion process, the earth is also going through this kind of time warpish process just right along with us. We're going through that 3D through 4D, 5D expansion of consciousness as well. And if we get hurt, harmed, or injured, or if our auras are contracted, we can't function very well. We don't feel very good. And those are all the ascension symptoms that you always hear everybody talking about, of like headaches or stomach aches, or the ability to have insomnia, or the ability to sleep for days on end. It can cause anxiety, panic attacks. It can cause depression. There's all kinds of things that can result in a very rapid acceleration of vibration on the earth, which we just most recently had. And we're just coming off the other side of a full moon and an equinox. I mean, we've just got some potent energies, just really trying to influence us, but also trying to influence the earth. So let me share a little story with you. Now, every intuitive, every psychic is different, meaning it's kind of like a registered nurse. I'm a registered nurse, but my specialty was cardiac intensive care. So I specialized in as an open heart recovery nurse. So if you had ever had a heart attack, you've ever had heart surgery, I would be the nurse at your bedside, kind of taking care of all those lines and infusions and getting you through the other side of it. And so that was one of my specialties. And then hospice nursing ended up towards the end of my career before I retired, another type of nursing. However, some nurses are pediatric nurses. They're going to work with newborns. They're going to work with children. Maybe they work with sports medicine. Maybe they work with the elderly. Some specialize in heart. Some specialize in the colon. Some specialize in the brain and neurological issues. So you get the point, right? Psychics are the same. They have certain specialties. So, like as a psychic, one of my specialties is I love to work with all kinds of people. I love people in general. I love to look at the energy field, but I have a specialty working with teenagers, young adults. So that's one of my specialties. I also work a lot with death and tragic deaths, or if people have been responsible for their own death, severe depression, traumas. So that's kind of the range that I work in. And I love to work with people who are on a spiritual path. But again, I tend to get people who are dealing with some pretty deep traumatic issues. Now, it comes to the earth. So I'm kind of leading up to this story. So I'm trying to remember when it was. I think it was in 2005, 6, or 7, somewhere, long time ago, right? And I had met an elder of the Canoncito tribe in New Mexico. I had met him in India, and he was one of the elders who was helping to represent the Mayan prophecy at the time. So, yeah, this is definitely before 2012. All right. So I met him in India. We traveled together. It was amazing because I got to hear firsthand the prophecy of the Mayan prophecy, and I got to travel with elders from around the world who were very prophetic healers, psychics, medicine people on this trip through India. So at the end of the trip, he had said that he had invited me to his land to come to his tribal land and to travel with them to their sacred land. And so I did, and Yvonne and I both traveled down there. Now, we happened to go during a time where they had been in the court system trying to get access from a particular rancher in New Mexico who owned the private rights, owned the land, but this land had been their sacred land for thousands of years. So they didn't even have access to their own ancient sacred sites. So they had just won a court injunction or order for a window period of time of a month to be able to travel to their sacred mountain. And Yvonne and I happened to go down when they had the opportunity to do that. So I'm going to try to make this long, very interesting story a little bit shorter to kind of get to my point. So it was a long walk. There was about 100 people of the Canoncito tribe, and Yvonne and I, again, were very blessed and very fortunate to be able to travel with them, camp out on the land for several days, and to walk with them on their sacred land to this sacred mountain. Now, we went to the final part of the journey was to climb up this path up to this sacred mountain. And I had been told that this particular mountain had been kind of a visionary mountain for medicine people, that only medicine people had been to the top of this mountain over hundreds or thousands of years. All right. So it's the day of, we have to walk through this dry land for 8 miles. We get there. We get ready, we put our blankets down, we kind of get settled. Not everybody's going to hike up to the top, but Yvonne and I did go with others. And as we were kind of journeying to the top, it required a lot of the warriors just to kind of offer us a hand to help us, because it was just a lot of shale type rocks. It's very slippery, not easy to get to the top. But we got to the top, and one of the medicine people led us in a ceremony, and we sat in this big circle, and we were led through the ceremony, and lots of songs were to help kind of create the sacred opening for us to get messages. Now, they had kind of let us know that we would probably see loved ones or we would probably see our spirit guides and things like that, to not be surprised to see a lot of spirits at the top of the mountain greeting us. Unfortunately, that's not what happened for me. What happened for me was I was struck with this very kind of violent vision. And the violent vision was bombs and tanks and grenades and guns and killing. And it was just, you know, I felt like I was sitting in the middle of a war zone. I couldn't get out of it. I went deep, deep, deep into it. I couldn't snap out of it. And I was very quiet. It wasn't like I was screaming or anything like that. So no one really knew what my experience was, but I couldn't snap out of it. Now, what then I was shown by the ancient ones, the holy ones, was that every time there is war, this destructive war, it damages the ley lines of the earth. It'll damage the vortex, so the vortex stops spinning, and then life-giving energy can no longer run through those channels, can no longer run through the vortex, and that healers of the world are needed to make these repairs as quickly as possible to keep the earth functioning. So I got a big download of a message, and then we kind of came back. Several people shared, and they had beautiful, loving experiences. I didn't, so I didn't want to share what mine was. We made it down to the mountain. I was very disoriented. I couldn't recognize anyone. And when I went to speak to the spiritual elder that I had traveled to India with, I said I had a pretty distressing experience, and I shared the experience, and he said, "You are absolutely correct. That when war happens, it damages the energetic flow of the earth." And yes, you are absolutely correct, Nancy. There are some people who are called to heal that. So I'm going to tell you, it probably took me another month before I felt like myself again. That's how long it took me to kind of come back from that experience. So I'm sharing this experience with you all because there's going to be some of you who feel deeply, soulfully called to help repair the ley lines and the damage. So right now we, front and center in social media, we have warring nations that are happening, and we have other nations who are, and countries who are not at war, but who are on high alert, and have World War I, World War II, Vietnam, but then you want to think about the war in Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran, and lots of little revolutionary civil wars in Africa. So all of these things can damage those lines. Now, how do you heal them? How do you even begin to heal them? Because one of the questions I had asked the elder was, how am I going to be able to travel around the world to all these places where they've had wars and heal this? Like, I felt like I needed to do this. And fortunately, he said, I can remotely heal these places. So I just want to let you know, with what's going on with Ukraine and Russia right now, I have been working to help this, and some of my graduate students have been assisting with this as well. So it can be repaired. So it takes intention to want to help. You let Spirit know, I'm raising my hand. I'm asking to be called. I'm asking to be guided with the wisdom and knowledge to be able to help heal the earth so we can return back to a robust flow of life-giving energy. So if you don't know a lot about ley lines, that's the first place you're going to do, is you're going to go online and you're going to do a search and ask to enhance your knowledge of ley lines and vortexes. So there are definitely major ley lines. So there's definitely sacred ones that are around the world, but there's small ley lines as well. So you've got some ley lines that can be a mile wide, and you have other ley lines that might be a foot wide. So there's many layers of grids of ley lines around the world. Now, everywhere that those two ley lines cross, there's going to be a vortex or an earthly chakra. And some vortexes can be 5 miles across. Some vortexes are huge. And then you can have very small vortexes that might be 10 feet across or 5 feet across. You've got to have little tiny ones in your yard. Then we can have some major ones. Now, in the world where sacred sites are located are where you've got some major ley lines and you have some major vortexes that can move a lot of energy. Just like a healer, you have some healers who can heal the masses, and you have some healers that work with people one-on-one. So it's the same in the world. You can have large vortexes and you can have small vortexes. So a ley line is your intention and desire is that you want to infuse that ley line with golden healing energy. And as that golden healing energy is flowing through that energetic line, if there's been damage to that line, because even it's just not war, if there's been a tragedy that's happened, like a car accident or a murder, like things like that can damage the lines. You want to get in there and you want to do the healing as soon as possible to help get that line repaired to return life-giving energy to that area. Because I've noticed sometimes if there's a car accident that happens and that energy in the land doesn't get repaired, another accident can happen there and another accident. And we know that there are some places in the area that you live that's highly prone for accidents. So I share that with you because you can have a country that's not at war, but if those vortexes and ley lines were damaged by a previous war, then it can attract war to it again. The energy of violence, the energy of destruction can be drawn to that area again. Why? Because the energy is not flowing. There's no life-giving energy there. And I bet each and every one of you can recall a place where you've gone and like, ooh, it doesn't feel good here. Something usually happened in the area and there isn't really energy flowing through. So when you have that ability, it's nice to offer a healing to that piece of land. So you want to run energy through those damaged ley lines in warring countries. Now, if you would like to start something like this, you might want to start with a country that's at peace right now, but maybe has had some unrest in the area. And so you're going to do in a kind of a peaceful area first to kind of practice. And then once you run the energy through the ley lines, it's usually pretty easy. It can repair pretty lightly. Then where those crosses are where the vortexes are. So a vortex is like a chakra, so it can get damaged, and it's like a cone shape, but it can kind of get torn in the middle or it can get shattered. How do you heal it? The same way. You just start inviting divine golden healing energy through, or you might be guided to use another color. You bring that all the way through that vortex, that cone, and it's going to start to repair. But the tip of the cone, you want to ground to the center of the earth. You want to stabilize it, because once that vortex starts to spin again, if it's damaged, it's just like flop, flop, flop. It's not going to be efficient in its flow. So you want to ground it and then bring gold through it. You want to remind it what today's date is with the intention to dissolve the old damaging energy. Now, having said all that and saying that it's simple, I will tell you that we had a vortex that was about 3 miles wide in the area that I live in Tacoma, Washington. And it was damaged about 200 years ago when, we'll just say, when the colonies kind of moved into Washington state and moved the indigenous peoples off the land. That particular very, very large vortex took gentle healing for 3 years. 3 years I worked on that. And every time I'd say, can I give it a good spin yet? And Spirit would say, no, it's not ready yet. You have to stabilize the ley lines. You have to stabilize the chakra. I can still remember the day when it said, all right, you've done enough healing now. Now it's ready. It's almost like the switch is ready. The breaker box is ready to be flipped back on again. And then that vortex started spinning. And as soon as that happened, like lots of good things started happening for Tacoma that I live in. Lots of new buildings started happening, just lots of new businesses started, lots of people being attracted to live here. So I encourage you, if you're called, jump into it, play with it, ask Spirit for guidance, ask Ascended Masters for guidance, trust your intuitive knowingness and instincts. And join me and many, many, many others in the world who are doing this work. Go order yourself some maps. Look at a globe to see where the different lines are going. And in a state that we're in right now where it feels like we feel kind of helpless and hopeless, and we want to be able to do more. These are those kind of invisible behind the scenes things that you can do to help uplift and help Earth provide life-giving energy for us all again as we continue to expand in consciousness. You can do it. You can do it. You've got what it takes. It's already within you. Just have to make that leap. And I know that all of us in the world and the earth is going to really appreciate it. All right, everyone. Let me know if you'd like more videos on this topic, because I've got lots of experience in this background and I will be happy to make more videos. Just leave a comment in the comment section, and definitely subscribe so that you'll know every time I release a new video. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks for joining me.